What do you get when you cross a construction helmet with a medieval crossbow? The most exciting video I've made in a while, of course. Hello everyone, I am Jonathan, also known as the PC Genie. Now today, of course, we're going to be doing that test with the crossbow versus a hard hat, as per the title. Now, I'll do two parts. Firstly, I'll just give a quick summary about the helmet and the crossbow to know what we're up against. And then, second part, I'll just get to it. I'll start shooting until we see what happens. So firstly, let's talk about this helmet. Now, I work in an industrial laundrette. We wash various garments, including engineering stuff. And it just so happens that these helmets were being thrown away. They were in the bin, they were going to end up in a landfill. So I thought I'd take them home. And yeah, that means I am doing the reduce, reuse, recycle. I'm reusing, you see. Rather than going from my workplace to a landfill, it's going from my workplace to here and maybe get shot to pieces, and then to a landfill. So, you know, recycle, the possibilities are endless and all that. So, about this helmet, it is by Arco Essentials. They produce things like chemical resistant gear, cut resistant gear, impact resistant gear. They've produced gloves, helmets like this and other things. So this isn't some sort of toy or prop, this is a real, helmet used for things like engineering or construction. It's made of hard plastic, there's no metal in this. It is not a brittle plastic, because if you see here, I am bending the helmet. So it's made of something that would absorb the shock and ripple around the helmet, which is going to help it resist things like hammers or things like crossbow bolts, for example. Just the usual things. And in terms of the general design, it's going to be quite resilient. Apart from the fact that it's made of such plastic, it's got, of course, this general helmet design. So if I shoot around these bits, it's going to deflect off. If I hit around the sides or the top, it'll just probably scratch and skim off, I predict. Whereas here, where the logo used to be for the particular company client, I scratched it off to, stop giving away company trade secrets and all that. I don't want to be arrested for fraud. That would be a rather adverse scenario. So, yeah, I'm hoping to hit this front where the logo used to be, because that gives me the best chance to puncture through the helmet. There's the least curvature, the most direct hit. So we'll be testing the resilience of the material wholesale, rather than it sort of being deflected away. And it's got an internal lining. This won't affect the test much. It just means that it has some absorption and padding. So if I was struck on the head, it sort of has a sponginess in that there's some give in this lining. Interesting note to long-term viewers of the channel, you'll see on here there's a size adjustment strap. When I've got it adjusted to number 57, it fits me perfectly. Wow, look at that, beautiful. Now, let's talk about, firstly, one last point. It is a universal thickness. Apart from these edges and bits that are a bit thicker, apart from that, the entire rest is the same thickness. This central reinforcing bar is going to be good for the structure, but it's actually recessed inside the helmet. So it is the same thickness on here as it is on here. It's just that the actual shape and curvature will affect how deeply it punctures in. So I'm going to be using this for testing, and for the rest of the video I'll wear the white one, because I like it more, and it makes sense to shoot a more stereotypically yellow coloured one anyway. Now for the crossbow. So this is by, it's by Todd Toddashini of Todd's Workshop or Todd's Stuff. There's a lot of Todds involved. This medieval crossbow is dated, it's sort of designed on sort of 1400s, sort of late medieval period crossbow, and it's sort of a munitions grade crossbow. It's not a fancy one, as you can see it's a more basic kind of look. It's got a steel prod or bow. This string is probably made of sinew or something like that. It has a foot stirrup of steel, and apart from that, the stock is, I do believe it's made of ash. The fittings some people use things like horn, but the locking wheel here and the trigger, as well as these plates and the stirrups, are all made of steel. So this is really good. The actual draw weight, the power, so to speak, is 350 pounds. Now, the usual crossbows that I've seen that you can just get off the shelves are around, I've seen them around 70 to 120 pounds. But it's not quite as simple as that, because they normally have a longer, what's called power stroke. Basically, it's like comparing a 1-inch punch to a proper punch. You've got the same strength, but when there's less distance to accelerate, you can't give as much power. So it's not quite as simple as the, that number, but it's still going to be a lot more powerful than your typical crossbow. So yeah, that's the crossbow. Oh, and in terms of the bolts, I'll just get an example here. So here we have an example of a bolt. It has wooden fletchings, which last longer when in storage, so you can store them for many years. They don't get eaten by insects and whatnot. And if I show you along the bolt, you might notice it's hard to get an exact angle. My hands seem to be shaking a bit, probably from the excitement of shooting a helmet with a crossbow. These are a bit curved, they're bent, and that's basically to allow spin in flight. So you've got a more accurate, a more true flight. The tip of this is steel. This is a short bodkin. This is going to be the best for piercing into armour. Well, this type of armour. If you've got a long bodkin, which is a long, thinner point, that's good for puncturing into things like a gambeson or chainmail. Those things will, they have a finer point, they're sharp, and they'll puncture through easily. However, they are quite liable to bend or snap. So a shorter, stubbier bodkin like this is good against hard armour, such as a steel breastplate, perhaps, or something like this hard plastic helmet. So I'd say that this is the ideal type of bolt to use against the sort of helmet we're going to be testing today. You don't see any sort of knock, that's the little notch that goes into the string. It's just a flat bit on the back. The actual shaft, I think, is also made of ash. I'm not 100% sure. But one thing I know for certain is it's very good for getting into armour, and this is a powerful crossbow. So powerful, in fact, that normally you'd if you don't know about loading crossbows, you'd put your foot into this stirrup, you'd then get both hands onto the bow, and you'd be drawing you'd be bending down and drawing upwards in towards your core, and then you could just load it and shoot. But it's too powerful for that. It needs a mechanism, which I've got just over here, which is called a goat's foot lever. Now, it's going to take too much time to demonstrate it. You'll get to see it when it's time for the actual shooting. I'll load it in front of your eyes, and then you can watch me actually shoot at the helmet. But yes, it's a very powerful crossbow, a tough weapon, versus a very powerful and tough helmet. So let's see how it performs, shall we? One final note before I begin. I was dialing in my aim, and I broke this bolt in the meantime, so fletching's gone, and that bit snapped off. So I've used up basically my entire month's Patreon money just before I've even started. There we go. So I will load this in front of you. You can see the whole process. Put this a bit forward. Not brilliant of it, but I am functional. That was a little bit awkward because I'm trying to get it in shot. Trying to get the shot in shot. I missed. Second attempt. Oh, and just in case it rebounds back into my eye, I've got a little mask on. A helmet thing. Goggles, that's the word I was looking for. Right, so just and... Right, so just and... Interesting result. You'll see here, it caused a scratch and deflected off, just like I said it would. I was trying to aim for here, but instead went up and to the right. Caused a very deep scar, but obviously anybody wearing it would be completely unharmed. Very good. Third shot. Same bolt. Just going to try it again. Because although the fletching has been quite damaged, as you'll see here, the actual tip and everything else like that are completely intact. This will be basically point blank range. Gotcha! Gotcha! So, a very interesting result indeed. I don't think it's damaged the fletching any further, but as you can see, that's one dead helmet wearer. Or maybe not, it depends. Because if you look here, the way the liner suspends it, I mentioned about how it protects against the the impact of being hit. But actually, if my head, hang on, let me wear it for a second, that helmet, yeah, so I'd be looking like that. Oh, boss! So, it seems that even if someone was wearing that, they would not have actually died. Even though, as you can see, the bolt has punctured through the helmet, and not on the flat part I was aiming for. It has still gone on a curve, but it's one of these little dips. Just before the central ridge, which actually reinforces the helmet, it's actually hit this bit, which meant I was able to get just enough purchase to actually go through. That's all it needs. The difference, maybe a few, in fact, if we look at where this scar is, and where this bolt punctured, they're barely, not even a centimetre apart. And the difference between hitting this part, which is all round, and skates off, just causing this little scratch, and then here, where it's caught into that little ridge, and it's fully punctured through. In fact, if we look at this side, it actually started to puncture into the back of the helmet. So here's an internal view. So you can see the bolt has gone all the way, hang on, all the way through. From this bit back here, let me remove the lining for you. And then I'm trying to work in reverse. Everything's backwards from my angle. Here we are. Yep, here we are. So it's actually gone into that part of the helmet. Now let's see how easy it is to remove. Not. Oh, bit of purchase. So yeah, plastic is lining that. That is interesting actually, because there's some sort of dent here on this bolt. I don't remember that being there before, so maybe I just didn't notice, or it happened on the first shot. Who knows? What I do know is it punctured through this end of the helmet, and then punctured starting to get into the back of the helmet. So if someone was shot from the correct angle, they actually get, well, they get killed. If not, they are saved. That's the interesting thing about these sorts of helmets, and I mentioned about things like deflection, and I feel like that reflects on how things would have been, let me just put this bolt away, how things would have been in a real battle. Because you can have armour, and usually it's like a video game type of idea. You know, people go, this armour will stop this, and it won't stop that, and there, and there, and there, and there. But actually, it's more complicated than that. Sometimes, I mean, we've got the same crossbow, and like I said, it draws the same distance, so it has the same power stroke, it's got the same amount of shot. It's not like a bow, where I might be have a bit of a better stance or something, and the string is pulled a bit further back, so has more power or less power, things like that. It was the exact same power, and even the exact identical bolt every single time, And yes, I did shoot from closer, but it felt to me like I was getting, didn't have enough range to decelerate properly, so I don't think there would have been anything other than a negligible difference in the actual shot speed. It would have been almost identical, and yet we've got one example where you've got a scratch, and you could take 100 of these, and the helmet would be quite damaged, and you'd wonder about maybe getting a new one eventually, but you could take this sort of damage probably hundreds of times without ever worrying. You can just laugh it off. And yet, with the same crossbow, the same bolt, at the similar-ish sort of range, just that difference of exactly where on the same piece of armour it hit, suddenly it goes all the way through. So yeah, that's possibly the best outcome we could have had today. Instead of saying, oh, the crossbow's the best, or the helmet is the best, they've both won in their own way. It's like that crappy movie Sink, everybody wins. But yeah, this is an interesting result, I'd say. I might test this again with other objects like machetes and things, see how much it resists cutting and directly resisting force. And again, we'll probably see the same factors into play, the deflection or just straight taking on the hit like a man. So yeah, helmets are good, getting shot at the right angle is bad. That is all for today. Goodbye. And maybe pay me money on Patreon so I can get some new bolts, new helmets and stuff like that. Thanks.